my skin is terrible. This meat just destroys you.
Yeah.
It hurts to smile.
I know, I never get chapped lips except here. Coleman's Carpool. I'm Coleman, this is Tom.
Hey.
We're in Mesa.
We're in Mesa.
It's dry.
And hot.
And hot. How's your experience for the weekend been so far?
Well, I went faster than last time I was here, which is good. Last time I was here, I went 209 2 fly. Pretty sure Cortez went 209 2 breast. Same day or same weekend. So a better weekend than that, yeah.
Can we talk about the Chula Vista training camp?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think that just sounded so cool.
Yeah, it's I guess they did it more in 12 and stuff too, but I was at school, but for the pros and some of the high schoolers.
Okay.
During NCAAs and stuff, when all the other coaches are kind of distracted, they organize these trips, and it's kind of cool to change environments and kind of breathe some life into a pretty monotonous season. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. I like John a lot. I like David a lot, and they have a pretty good core group of people. Yeah. So it's always good to be able to tap into a group like that.
Yeah, yeah. So like, what additional kind of resources were you able to get there?
Well, it's interesting because USFC, I guess, just pulled out of Chula, but then San Diego had like bought it and has another company working through it. So then there's the same kind of med staff is there, so you're able to work with them a lot, and then the food's there, and it's the same thing as Colorado, but it's in San Diego, which is cool. Like, it's a lot more fun place to be, and I have some friends in the area, so it was like, got to go surf and stuff. So it's kind of funny because they're both kind of exaggerated versions of Dave and Yuri.
Okay.
Whereas like David is a lot more like I think he's okay with me saying this, like cutesy, and a lot more like weird drills. Which Durden's definitely known for, but Marsh is like that times 10.
Yeah.
Whereas like Yuri's definitely known to hammer and write longer, people call it more boring, I guess, but like more straightforward is what I would call it, practices, and her band check is that even more. So it was, it was a good fit, but it was just a different, like a slight change from what we do day to day.
Yeah.
Like a lot more threshold freestyle, and then our band check loves to do a lot more off the block stuff, which I think is actually kind of cool and something I'm pushing to do more at Cal, at least for me, because I think I respond to that better.
Yeah.
Like, some people don't need to, practice racing that much, but I'm really good when I'm going to a ton of meets. It's like, hey, maybe I should just practice racing more.
When you travel to a meet like this, where do you get your food?
Jimmy John's. We went to Jimmy John's in Osaka, and I just do hotel breakfasts. Because at the games, that's what we were doing, because like the breakfast was so wishy-washy and there was such a long wait. It's like, make oatmeal and PBJ and just kind of go. And it's like, well, if that's what we're going to do with these big meets, then I can do that in my hotel room here.
Where do you do your grocery shopping?
Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Typical hippie Northern California.
What do you get where?
Veggies and stuff tend to be like Whole Foods or Berkeley Bowl, right?
Okay.
Because Trader Joe's, I mean, obviously, it's good, but it's just not as good, not as fresh.
Okay, with the Berkeley Bowl, can we talk a little bit about
that's
that
kind
place is a
of
haven.
Locally world famous. Really cheap local meats, really cheap local vegetables, really fresh. It's kind of like a farmer's market, but it operates like a grocery store. So.
And it's just aisles and aisles of produce you've
and it's cool.
heard of or never heard of.
Yeah, you got to stay out of the middle though, because the middle stuff's all the same, but it's just like twice as expensive.
Yeah.
But if you go around the edges, that's where they thrive. I've noticed. For all of your viewers who need to know how to operate
the Berkeley
Bowl experience.
A meet like this, like when you go to the grocery store, what do you have to have?
Oh yeah, so we went to the Winco, right? And oatmeal, PBJ makins. I mean, just a lot of like, try and get as complex carbs as you can get, but just carbs and fats and proteins. I got some hummus this time.
Yeah.
And if you get something like that, like, 'cause these meats, they're not long, but especially at the longer ones, like, things get pretty monotonous. So the smallest thing can brighten your day. And this meat, it was hummus for me.
So when did you start thinking about that kind of stuff? Like, oh, I need to watch my fats, or I need to
2014, I'd say. I mean, you can see pictures of me from college, and like, it's pretty clear I didn't care about my diet. I think I ate Wiki Hawaiian barbecue, another Berkeley staple, 3 or 4 times a week when I was a sophomore. But then I met my wife around that time, and she kind of got me just for like the health side of things, like showed me like, you know, what all this stuff is, and then I started doing my own research, and then you start watching these sports, right? Or I did, and it's like, you know, every single older athlete's like, you know, the older I get, the more important this part is, and like especially Kelly Slater, it's huge on that. So, you know, it's, you don't want to get lost in it, right?
Right.
And this is what I preach now. It's like you can get really obsessed. And like, there's a nutritionist that I work with, and he works with bodybuilders and wrestlers, and it's like, for them it's important because, like, you know, if they step on the scale and they're wrong, they can't compete. Fortunately, that's not my problem. But you know, so yeah, it's definitely a rabbit hole, and if you get lost in it, it can kind of distract you from some of the more important stuff in the sport. But it is something to be aware of, and I think that's where I'm with it now. It's like, all right, like, gotta monitor my sugars, especially like the 8 weeks before a big meet.
Wyatt tells me a lot about it.
Well, Wyatt's doing that keto thing. That's his little older brother. I think keto's cool, but from every time I've heard of it, every time I've seen someone try it, and Wyatt's even doing the blood work, which I think is, if you're going to do it, you have to do that. It's not blood work, but you just kind of poke yourself. It kind of takes away from your ability to, like, really, like, express high-end performance in athletics. That's what people say. And, like, a lot of the MMA guys that have tried it have said that, so I don't think it's interesting to do it. But
Yeah.
I think if I wasn't competing, like, it's just the easiest way to stay healthy. So, man, I should not drive into the sun. This is probably the worst way to do this. I think that's one thing about this sport that's the hardest is, man, like, if I was like, okay, so baseball's like this, because it's every day. So it's like, it's one game, but it's multiple days in a row for a series, right? But it was like college basketball, they got, like, you know, a couple days in between it. But, like, I've been watching a lot of MMA lately.
Okay.
It's like, man, they gear up for one night and then they're done for a couple months. It's like, that'd be so nice. Like, there's no worries about taking too much caffeine or not being able to sleep or, like, any of those concerns that kind of come in with swimming.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's like, no matter how hard I go one night, it's like I got to get back up in the morning.
Okay, speaking of baseball and MMA, I heard you had a sports theory the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Okay, yeah. Well, I was just thinking about, like, different types of sports, and is this that tennis is a combat sport?
Yes.
That theory? Okay, so there's 4, but now 5, kind of, but I still think there's 4 kinds of sports. There's sports where you're unaffected by your opponent, and it's about who can perform the best.
Cold, actually.
Like swimming. Okay. Well, this is gonna take a while.
Okay.
I'll go left,
Fair.
make a U-turn, and go back. So swimming is like that. A lot of track and field, obviously, is like that. And then I think a lot of judge sports are also like that. Like surfing's a lot like that, but then there's interference and stuff. So gymnastics too. And then there's like the goal is at the other side, and there's a ton of people in between you and it. Like basketball, football, soccer, hockey. Like the most traditional, most popular sports are like that, right? And then there is what I would call combat sports, where it's you and another person, and your outcome is completely defined by that other person. Yeah. So MMA is obviously the quintessential example of boxing. But my point in that argument was tennis is probably a combat sport by my paradigm. Mm-hmm. And then the 4th type would be you hit a ball and somebody throws. So baseball and cricket. Yeah. Which are kind of like on their own, and there's not much out there like them. There's that one, I just don't know how it works with that South American sport. With the big, they throw it really, really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the one the Aztecs played, which is like a mix between rugby and basketball.
Right, where they like bounce it in.
But I don't know enough about those to really have that impact my theory. But I don't know. We were just got in a conversation. I don't know if there was a point. It's just like, because like if I was going to play tennis, I know there's tournaments. You just kind of train your game and then hope your game's better than everybody else's. But if tennis did work like MMA, like you would really, this is the way that I was thinking about it. It's like, I think the way you train is defined. The way that these sports are divided up is like divided up by the way they train. Like, so me as a swimmer, I'm just training to maximize my potential.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be the best thing possible. Like I can swim to win races, but more often than not, the guy who just swims to swim the fastest possible is gonna win. And then there's team sports, like like the army sports, where it's just like about connection and about like plan and about, you know, day-to-day consistency, like, you know, and scoring opportunity, like the Warriors and the Barcelona. That seems to be what they focus on. But then combat sports, and I think tennis could be like this if they changed the way their sport worked. You would train not only, but especially to beat your opponent. Because that's what they do, like in MMA. It's like, okay, so if I'm a good striker, but I'm going up against someone who's really good at jiu-jitsu, I'm really going to work on my ground game, because that's where my weakness is against this specific person. But if I'm a really good striker going up against a really good striker, I know I basically just have a kickboxing match. So I'm probably not going to work too much on jiu-jitsu. So that's probably how these are defined by the way that you train. But I don't know, I was really bored one night. Wyatt and I did have that discussion. So he said that he wanted a whole fifth family of sports for judge sports.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be defined. That defines the way they approach their sport a lot, right? Because like how pretty someone finishes a gymnastics move or an ice skating move or surfing. Yeah. Can really impact the score. Like they say that like I watch surfing more than I watch the other two. And if a guy celebrates, a questionable score, it can really bump it up. Really? Just because it can impact the impression to the judges, or they want to make it look like it was a good score because he celebrated and they want the sport to make sense. Yeah. There's two arguments. Those are the two arguments. People have their own opinions on why that happens, but it is a phenomenon that does happen. Gotcha. I've been doing my Wim Hof too, innerfire.com. It's a breathing method, and I actually think it really helps with allergies and stuff.
Interesting. Is that
breathing exercises?
Yeah, that's like a all the time thing.
Well, I do it more when I know that I'm going to be in like a performance environment or an allergy-prone environment. But yeah, I mean, I would ideally do it every day. But
okay.
You know how those kind of things go. I mostly just eat, poop, and sleep every day. On that note, see you, everyone.
That's it.